listening to the Born Primitive Podcast.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Born Primitive Podcast. How we doing, Tony?
Morning, Bear.
Did you get it in this morning?
No, I didn't. I got an afternoon one today.
All right, roger
Hey,
that.
you guys shifted the podcast time. My
I know.
schedule's tight, man.
Yeah, we're blaming that on our guest we're about to introduce. Really excited for today. This guest definitely does not need an introduction, but I'm going to go ahead and do one anyway. We got Matt Fraser on the podcast today. Five-time CrossFit Games champion from 2016 to 2020. Did that in absolutely dominant fashion. Prior to that, he was a successful Olympic weightlifter, won the junior nationals, and that's kind of where he originally cut his teeth. Since the games, he's continued to kill it as an entrepreneur. He's the founder and chief product officer of HWPO, Hard Work Pays Off. Also author of the book, HWPO, Hard Work Pays Off, a strength training book. He's also one of the founders of Podium Supplements, which a lot of you have probably seen. That's picking up a lot of momentum as well. So, Matt Fraser, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
So I guess, eventually I want to go back to a little bit of when you were, competing in the games and kind of pull out some things you were doing to be successful. And I've heard a lot of your content, but I think it's worth repeating for the guests. But before we go there, I kind of want to get caught up for the listeners. Since you retired, and I love to see this. We've seen, other athletes that have done this where it's like one chapter ends, but the story's not over, and you guys just double down on something else and achieve success in a whole new realm. And I love to see that. And I've seen that with you, and I've just been, rooting you on from over here. And so I guess catch us up since retirement. What have you been up to? Give us the rundown, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it seems like I just retired last summer, my last time competing was just around the corner, but no, it's like, damn, that was 4 years ago. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around, but no, just tried to not let off the gas. It took a little bit of time after, but I know I don't do well with idle hands. So when I first retired, it was all right. Like my entire last year competing, I knew it was my last year. So I got all my ducks in a row. I got all these things lined up, all these projects just to kind of keep me occupied. And honestly thought there's probably 6 projects. I thought I was all right, I'll tackle 2 at a time. And, they'll be side projects. They'll remain as side projects. And before we even launched HWPO training, I quickly realized this is not a side project. It's growing to a size that this could consume my life. And it basically has, it's been so much fun. We launched it. The response from it was great. It was just an opportunity to, kind of show people what I was doing for training, how I trained for years and years. And then expand, get to, program for the professionals, program for the beginners, program for sport specific people. And I get to work with friends every day. I work with Matt O'Keefe. He's our CEO. Before we even launched on our own, I was asking him hey man, what's it going to take to get you to quit all of your other jobs and just work for this? And, it took a little bit over a year to kind of get that all figured out, but yeah, we haven't let off the throttle quite yet.
Well, it was such a perfect segue, because clearly you had so much credibility as an athlete. And people, especially in CrossFit, that we're just a bunch of dorks. We're obsessed with your training regimen and what you were doing. How do you become a 5-time champ? Clearly that guy's doing something that no one else is doing. So the fact that you were able to, package that up for high-level athletes, but also just kind of the everyday, CrossFitter that might just want to level up their fitness. From a business standpoint, was freaking brilliant. And the great thing I would imagine about an app is, once you build it, and of course you have to maintain it, and I'm sure you guys are uploading, new videos, and obviously you have to make it current. But you guys offer a service where we're a product company, so we have to sell. We have an inventory, and I'm like, man, that would be such a nice business to just work really hard. No, I know. Yeah. You're now on both sides.
It sounds like that, and I was the same. Of once you fill out, when we first launched, we did it through a third party, and it was like I would hand off an Excel spreadsheet basically, and then they would do everything else. And I'm like, man, this is nice. But then, we weren't happy with, the reinvestment or the performance or, much of anything. And so as soon as we had a 1-year contract, as soon as that was up, we were just like, hey, thanks, but we're going to go do it on our own. And yeah, building your own app is it's its own world of headaches. And some of our some of our developers were over in the Ukraine, and this is right as China, Ukraine, or Russia, Ukraine is popping off. And so like, we're getting a call like, hey, can we have the weekend off? We need to stock our bomb shelters. And
Oh
we're
my
like,
God.
yeah, yeah, like take as much time as you need. So yeah, it was yeah, it was a fun, hectic time launching that because yeah.
And do you guys offer programming to gyms as well, that if they want to subscribe like for their box, just so they don't have to worry about doing their own programming?
Yeah, so we just launched within the last couple of weeks affiliate programming. So Michelle Latondra, she owned, ran Deca Comp, Pat
Mm-hmm.
Vellner's coach. So we merged Deca into HWPO. So she runs our affiliate program now, and it is incredible. Like we've been doing some classes here at HQ with a local company that they send over, I think about 50 of their employees every day for programming. And they just run off the affiliate program. And it's so like O'Keefe's jumped in, I'll jump in, and it is good. It is a thorough, it's not just a workout, it's like your whole lesson plan, all your talking points, all your scaling options, all your substitutions. It is a very, very thorough affiliate track because Michelle's basically done everything in an affiliate. She's worked just about every position there is.
Yeah, and I think you can tell a noticeable difference when you go into a CrossFit gym, if they're programming it themselves. Not to say like they can't, but it's such a
lot
value
of
add.
work.
Yeah, it's a ton of work, and honestly,
It is a
some
lot
of
of
them
work.
are not qualified to be writing programming. I'll just call it. I mean, I've probably, when I was in the military, we traveled all over the country, so that was how I would just, whatever local CrossFit gym was, wherever we were training, I would just join it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, and you saw a giant variance in quality, right? But you could quickly tell the ones that were subscribing to like one like y'all had that was like, okay, the warm-up's dialed.
Yeah, when you're running a CrossFit gym, it's like you have 101 things going on. Like programming is just one little cog in the wheel of like you still have to do your accounting, you have to do your member relations, you have to do promotions, you have to maintain your gym, all these things. And it was Michelle was in that same boat, when she came to us. And for us, we're like, man, you're running a really successful business, you're great at what you do, like why would you want to merge with us? And she was like, I've been doing it all on my own for however many years. She's like, I just want to program. She's like, I love programming, putting together lessons plans, all that type of stuff. But she was like, I don't want to do the accounting. I don't want to do. And she was like, you guys have the best resources. You have the best team. You have the best resources. You have the best app. So it was just kind of like, oh, okay, great. Like it's a win-win for both of us. Like I feel like we have the best affiliate programming, and she feels like she has the best support staff. So yeah, it's a win-win.
Love it, man. That's so cool. Talk to us about Podium. How did that come about, and how's that been going? I would imagine supplements has to be such a totally different game, and it's wildly competitive. I mean, it's like apparel and supplements. It's like both of us are absolute idiots for trying to compete in that space. We've done okay as you have, but like, what are we thinking, man? So talk us through how that got started and how it's been going.
I mean, again, it's just one of those things. Like I had an opportunity, like I got asked, and I haven't developed the skill of saying no yet. I'm glad I didn't on this one, but no, I was actually where were we? We were on vacation in Aruba, and it was one of those trips where we had a house, a bunch of extra rooms, and we just like hit up Marston and Heber, the Buttery Bros, and we're like, hey, like we got some extra rooms, come to Aruba. And so, we're having just a good time, and they actually took a call while we were there. And, I'm overhearing the call and hang up, and I was like, oh, what was that? And they're like, oh, we're talking to this guy about, the possibility of starting our own supplement brand in the space. And, that pillar's been empty for me for years. Like I just didn't, the last supplement sponsor I was with, relationship ended. I think they were kind of getting out of the CrossFit space, and I just couldn't find another company that like I just believed in the way I wanted to. If I'm putting my name on it, they're putting their name on me. I want to make sure that it's something that I can defend, I feel good about, that I'm proud of. And I just didn't find that so I left the space blank for a couple of years. And then, overheard the conversation with Marcy Heber, and I was like, fill me in a little bit more. And then they told the other partners, hey, Matt has an interest, and then just kind of hit the ground running there. So it started out with, the classic, what supplements do you want? How do you want them made? What flavor? Like all that type stuff. And then like, hey, we got to pick some athletes to sponsor. So, that was kind of an easy thing for me of, I was still so fresh out of retirement. I kind of knew everyone competing. And, first person, I was like, Justin Medeiros, like I was like, it's not if he's going to win, it's when he's going to win and how many times he's going to win. So, he was our first sponsored athlete. So that was great. But then our other partner, Paul, this is just his bread and butter. He's been in the supplement space for years and years. So he already has a lot of the connections, kind of knows the ropes and what to do. So it's been really great having him kind of steering the ship and just being a part of it. So it's been a ton of fun, getting into GNC, then getting into targets nationwide. It was, just super exciting stuff I didn't think that I would have the opportunity to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I saw the target update. That's so cool. And there's a lot of pitfalls with, big box retail, but I'm sure Paul is probably all over that. But it presents an incredible opportunity to scale if done right. And when I saw that, I was like, damn, that's a huge breakthrough. So congratulations on that. And stoked to kind of see how it develops.
Matt,
go ahead, Tone.
Matt, did that transition feel natural for you? Having been at the 5-year, won the CrossFit Games 5 years straight, training in an absolutely just rigorous, dialed way, and then going more into the business world. Did it feel awkward at first, or for you, were you able to kind of divert your energy and say like, hey, this is my new reality, and it was able to kind of fill not that hole, but fill that gap in which training, and I'm sure you're still training, but fill that same kind of itch or scratch that itch that you had?
Yeah, I think early on, like first, let's say first 6 months to a year, it was a super easy transition of, it was, I was excited for some time off. I had trained so long, so hard that, going a month without, doing a killer Metcon, I wasn't losing too much sleep over it. But I also had so many projects, so many things going on that it's like I could go from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. in the blink of an eye and be like, oh shit, where'd the day go? Like I was just busy doing other things. And at first, the novelty of sitting in front of a computer was so nice. I was like, I can sit here and work for 12 hours straight, and my heart rate never got over 180. I was never gasping for air. I never felt like my legs were going to pop. Like just those things that like they were the standard. That was when I showed up for a day of work, I knew I'm going to taste pennies because of how hard I'm going to be breathing. I'm going to get lightheaded at some point because of how hard I'm going, So little things like that. So sitting in front of a computer for the first little while, it was very nice. It's like just not gasping for air for a majority of your day. This is awesome. But then obviously, it's like I've been training since I was 12 years old, like with Olympic weightlifting. I started doing training twice a day at a pretty young age, and then like kind of carried straight over to CrossFit. So the better, like about 20 years of my life was revolved around training and competing. So it was a little strange when it's like, okay, now I've had enough time away from the gym, from like going hard. I want to start, getting back into it. That was strange. Just because like I'm not training 6 hours a day, so I'm not moving the same numbers. I'm not pulling the same numbers on the rower, especially when you first coming back. And then, being in and out of the gym in 90 minutes, 2 hours, that's a little weird. I'm used to, 3-4 hours at a time. So there were little things like that, but no, I readjusted pretty quickly.
And where did you land now? What does your training look like current day?
Probably about a year and a half ago, I like completely blew out my knee, and that was a fucking tough blow. So I tore ACL, MCL, LCL, and then pulled the meniscus off the bone. So I didn't tear the meniscus, but I tore it off the bone. That really fucking halted things. And that made it really, really hard coming back, because that was right when a couple weeks or months before that, I just started kind of hitting the gym hard again, had some goals in the gym of like, okay, I want to back squat 500 and stuff like that. So I was running a squat cycle. I was hitting some hard intervals. Like I was training, and then just a fluke accident, just everything went all at once. And yeah, that was tough, because then it's like, you're 6 months of not doing a fucking thing. Um, just PT for 6 hours, 8 hours a day. And then when you start getting back in, it's like I've been doing the Olympic lift since I was 12 years old. Like there's probably been more days that I've squatted than not since I was 12 years old, So now it's like, this is the first like big knee injury that I've had. And it's like, shit, it's different. It's just not the knee that I knew that I had. It doesn't, it's still fully capable, but it didn't feel the same. It wasn't the knee that I knew my entire life. So that kind of shook me. But give it enough time. It was like, I was just more expecting like between the 6 and 9 month mark to start feeling more like myself. But for me, it was actually more between like probably the 12 and 15 month mark. So, just still kind of easing back from that. Because so when I blew out my knee, Sammy was pregnant, and like literally I blew out my knee. There wasn't a single tear. There wasn't a single concern. I remember sitting down and being like, everything in that knee is gone. It is just like a tube of skin holding everything together. And I was like, that sucks. But that's where it ended. I was like, this isn't going to affect my livelihood. This isn't going to affect my career. This isn't going to affect. It literally is just going to be a couple shitty months of recovery. And I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. Like, I've had injuries before, and it's like almost what a relief that I don't have to rush back from this surgery. I don't have to rush back for the next competition. And so got the surgery, but I saw the effect that it had on people around me. And so like it affected my mood. Obviously, it fucking sent me into a spiral. But then Sammy's 5 months pregnant, having to like shovel the driveway and shit like that. And it was just like, okay, this is no longer just about me. This is like, I have a family that I need to look out for. And this isn't fair to Sammy to be dealing with this when she should be focusing on just raising a healthy baby. And so that was another big motivator when I came back, of like, I'm used to rushing back. I'm used to getting back, even trying to shave off a day here or there. And so when I was coming back from my knee, it was like, nope, we're taking our time. Health and like longevity are the number one priorities. I'm not concerned about how quickly can I get back up to a 405 back squat. I don't give a shit. So I am back to it now, but I wasn't in a hurry for it. So that kind of affected my training a bit for a good while there. But now it's kind of back to the normal thing. Hour and a half typically, a little bit of weightlifting, a little bit of cardio, a little bit of gymnastics, just kind of well-rounded.
Well, I'm glad you're able to get through it, man. I know that those knee injuries are crazy. I remember playing, ball in college. We'd be in the training room, and you'd have someone that just had an ACL surgery, and they'd put the curtain around them, and like they'd start cranking on it, and they'd like, you know what I mean? They would just be screaming because they're trying to get that range of motion back. And fortunately, I never had a knee injury, but I'm a shoulder injury guy. But I know that shit sucks, man. I want to ask a question about competing. Do you ever get the itch when you're around it to like, does it bring back the old like, oh, maybe I can make another run at this? And I'll give you like the quick story. I was at Ohio State's football stadium a couple weekends ago for the Zach Bryan concert, and I'm 36 years old, well past my playing days. That ended when I was 22, and to this day, if I'm around a football stadium, it spins up these emotions of like me thinking I can still play, and it's ridiculous. I'm 36, I'm washed up, there's no chance. But even at Ohio State, one of the best programs in the country, I went and hit a lift in their rec center the morning of the concert, and it's across the street from the stadium. So through the glass, I'm doing bench press and I'm squatting, and I see the opening of the horseshoe. You can see into the field, right? And I'm getting all worked up, like, like it's preseason's coming, they're about to be reporting back to camp, and every August that my biological clock starts saying like it's preseason camp, like I should be at camp right now doing
camp, baby,
doing board drills and the 3-a-days and watching tape and the sweaty linemen and just all the smells and everything. And it's just so funny. I'm like, I'm literally at the one of the top programs in the country, and I'm under this weird illusion that like I can now still play, even though I never even played at that level. I was Division I AA. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious. I think that's maybe a dude thing that like maybe we never shake. So when you go to like semifinals and you're at the CrossFit Games up in the stands watching, your athletes go, be real with me. What's going through your head?
Not the same. What's going through your head?
That's when you're a 5-time champ.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe it's because I was just fucking average, so I still think I got meat on the bone, man.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like there have been times where like a workout will get announced at the games, and I know I'm like, oh, if I were competing, I would have loved this one. Like, oh, I would have had fun with this one. I would have thrived at this. I would have done really well. Like that's in my wheelhouse. But no part of me is like missing it. And I think because CrossFit for me was the second wind. I had what I thought was a full sports career with weightlifting, and then, came to the end of that. It didn't really end on my terms. It didn't really end the way I wanted it to. It didn't end when I wanted it to, anything like that. But I don't know whether I had the foresight of like, well, what am I going to do when I'm 40? Like, I need to have a job, and I know what I want my life to look like in terms of standard of living and all that type of stuff. So it was easier to step away from that to focus on school. So I thought my sports career was done. Like I was 20, 21, 22 years old. And I was like, nope, time to focus on school, time to be an adult. And so then when CrossFit started, it was everything at that point was just a bonus. Like I remember competing on the weekends in the very, very beginning, and like little local competitions, you're in parking lots and stuff. And it's like, even those, I was so grateful to be there because I thought my days were done. And then so you start going to the games, start winning the games, and it's like, holy shit, like how did this happen? Like that, like I think it was because of my weightlifting career, I knew how to appreciate, or I knew, how special that was. But also I knew it was going to end. Like there was no lie, there's no doubt in my mind. I'm like, no, within a couple years, this is going to end. And a couple years in the grand scheme of life, boom. Like you said, you have a 3-year-old at home. Like I bet in a lot of ways it feels like she was born a month ago. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, that 3 years can go like that. And so that's kind of the attitude I took of like, yeah, these days are super, super long and exhausting and, whatever. But I was like, in a handful of years, I'm going to be looking back at this. I know that these are the good old days. I know that these are the times where, I got to be selfish. It's like, I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a family. It's like, yeah, I had Sammy there with me, but she's on the ride with me, So I think I had enough foresight in the moment to really appreciate it. And then definitely helped that, like silver lining, the last year I competed was COVID. And so the games are typically in August, and they just kept getting pushed back. They kept getting delayed. Then they did the stage 1 online, and then we went out to the ranch. And, so even that last season, I knew that was my last season the whole way through. And then I'm looking at it as like, shit, I just trained for an entire year for this last season, and then the last season might get canceled. It's a really good chance that the last season is going to get canceled. So by the time it actually happened, it's like I was so just mentally burnt out. I was exhausted. It was such a long season. There was so much up and down. Like you guys remember 2020 with COVID, it was fucking silly. So So, by the time it was done, I was ready to be done. I was chomping at the bit to be done because I had all these other things that I had put on hold and said no to for years and years. And I was like, no, I want to do more than just compete. I want to write a book. I want to start a business. I want to travel with my wife. I want to actually relax for once.
That's awesome. And I think also part of it is, I'm referencing football, but CrossFit, you guys, just the dedication it takes and the volume is just so insane. If you haven't done it, you really can't relate. I did it for a brief time. I made it out to the games once in the team division, and it was still probably nowhere near your volume, but it was still minimum 4 hours a day. You got your massage therapist. You're going to bed at 8:30. All your meals are perfect. Like it's very strict. 6 days a week. On the seventh day, you know the drill more than anyone.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot. It's hard for a lot of people to relate to what that looks like. The lonely off season of like, okay, August ended. All right, and now we have the open in like whatever March, and you have all this dead space now, and you have to figure out, okay, what's the train? So I don't envy you guys that had to, do that grind for so long. That was you making your living, right? That was your profession. You had to.
There were times I was very lucky that, I got to call that work, but there were times where it's like, oh, like fuck it, your body hurts, you're tired, you're irritable, like everything seems to be going wrong. It seems like wow, I've been lifting for 15 years and it's like, oh, last weekend I forgot how to snatch. Like it always seems like that type of shit. And then if you're dealing with an injury on top of it, forget it. It's miserable. Um, but it's so on those rare days where it's like that, it's like, no, all right, this is work. If I want what I have and if I want more, I need to show up to work, even on the days that I don't want to. And 6 days a week of training, and then on the seventh day, like it, like the example I give, I remember there was one day where it's just like I took Mondays off from training, and I remember there was one day where it was like, man, my body hurts, and so I just did 9 hours of body work, just like movie after movie after movie. Sammy would just kind of bring me my food when I was rolling out on the floor, but it was like massage, stretching, rolling out, like all these different things. And it's like, no, that's what my days off were. I was laying on the carpet with the PVC and some cups and like just doing body work. So even on the days that I wasn't training, there was still stuff contributing towards the next day of training. It never stopped. And like I kind of like I like program myself to every little thing. Like I talk about this all the time, like forks in the road of like, I made a decision that no, like it doesn't matter if that fork in the road is like this drastic split or like just this little tiny Y. One decision is going to take you closer to your goal. One decision is going to take you further away. And it's like, I just, I was in a position where I didn't have to sacrifice a single fucking thing. And I saw the results from that. I liked the results from that. And so I did it again and again and again and again. And, and then you step away and it's like, all right, let's try to learn how to chill now. Like it's not every single thing is work, work, work. And, but yeah, I knew it was a short window of time. I knew in the grand scheme of life, it was going to go by like that. And so I just kind of put all my eggs in one basket.
Or where did that perspective come from, knowing that kind of that level of discipline? Because I see even in myself and then others, like you get a little success, opportunities open up, people start saying yes because it feels like, oh, and I think the ego starts to backdoor you and be like, oh, well, you have these opportunities, you should say yes to this, where it seems like you were very much able to stay not only crystal clear on your priorities, but then execute within that, which I think is a very rare thing. So where were you? How did you develop that perspective, and then how did you kind of stay in the pocket and continue to make those decisions? Because I can imagine the amount of things that got put in front of you during that, let's say 8-year or 6-year stretch, had to be unbelievable. And for you to maintain discipline and say like, hey, that sounds juicy, that sounds like, yeah, that would be awesome, but no, this is my focus now. Where did that ability come from?
So I think there was probably two life events that really contributed to that. One was taking second place in 2015. So second time taking second place, and I think myself in 2015 probably was a lot more of what you're talking about. Of I had a little bit of success in the space. That's when sponsors start rolling in. That's when, opportunities start showing up. And I don't know if I can blame myself for it, but it was like, no, I'm 25 years old. It's like this CrossFit thing kind of started, like I'm having a hell of a time riding this wave. And I just never anticipated it being what it was. So 2015, I probably slacked off in a couple areas, probably fucked up in a couple areas, and then I got the results that I got. So that was obviously very painful, very hard for me. So it just made me look like I remember I had this room that it was kind of like my man cave. It was my gun room, and no windows, no anything. It's just like a kind of I just had a couch in there and a TV, and I would just like work on my guns and do whatever. But I remember sitting there one day with no TV, no phone, just a notepad, and like, all right, like, what the fuck are we doing here? This is after 2015. I was trying to decide, am I going to compete again? Am I even going to try this again? Whatever it is, and it was just like, all right, like, it really came down to like, what's the story I want to tell when I'm 50 years old? What's the story I want to tell, grandkids someday? Um, and and so I just like, all right, I'm gonna just like crack down with this, um, because I just didn't want that feeling post 2015 games again. Just like that question, like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Because I didn't lose by much. I was right there going into the final workout. So it's like, for me, I was like, we were so close that I was like, what night of staying up late caused that? Like, was it that night that I stayed up till 3 a.m. watching Netflix? And like, if I went to bed early that night, would that have been the one thing that was enough to allow me to win the games? So I just realized I never want to have to ask myself that question again. I never want to have a what if. I want to look back and like, nope, I did it right. I got the results I wanted. Um, but then this little conversation I had with this individual, um, I think had a huge effect over time. Um, he at the time he was my accountant, like my just helping me because I'm 25, I'm making good money, and I don't know. I went from making zero to good money very quick. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm so scared of blowing it all. And so I was working with this accountant, and I remember I went and looked at a triplex, so 3 units in a house, and I was going to live in one unit, rent out the other two. The other 2 units were enough to cover my costs and a little bit of profit and cover the mortgage. And 25 years old, I'm like, no, this is the responsible thing to do. This is the right thing to do. All those things. And this accountant was like, all right, if everything goes right, you have the dream tenants, you never hear from them a single time, they don't keep you up late at night, anything. How much are you going to make? And I was like, I don't know, it was like 20 or 30 grand in profit off the 2 income properties. And he goes, okay, now imagine you have the worst tenants you've ever dealt with before. They call you every night at 2 a.m. They're playing music at 4 a.m. They're keeping you up at night. They're making, their hot water heater breaks, their furnace breaks. You got to repair all these things. How much is it going to cost you? And basically, he was like, if they fuck up your training so much, or they distract you from your training so much, what's it going to cost you for not winning the games? And I told him the number, and he goes, yeah, exactly. He's like, you make your living competing. He's like, properties, books, all these other opportunities, they'll be there when you're done competing. But he's like, you make your money competing, go fucking compete. Do nothing else. And I just like, took it to heart. I was like, okay. So I just remained living in my parents' basement as long as I could. I, drove shit. I spent no money. I tried to have zero fucking distractions at all. I tried to have zero living expenses, everything. Because I wanted 100% of my attention to go to competing. And it was just like with the trust that, nope, all that stuff is still going to be there. I can still invest in real estate and have income properties, but I'm just going to do it in 5 years, not today. So, whether that's right or wrong, I'm sure there's other opinions on it of like when and how you should do that stuff. But that was the approach I took. I just put all of my eggs into one basket. I just saw the opportunity I had in front of me, and I was just like, okay, time to capitalize.
It's a hell of an accountant.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's so cool. I mean, you hear just stories of these elite athletes, like the Kobe Bryants, the Bradys, the Frasers. You guys, it seems so like obvious to you, but Matt, that is so unique. And like that humility and maturity you had in that moment to just go all in, laser focused on one effort. The accountant definitely, I think, gave you great advice, but you obviously harnessed it, and part of that was your doing too. And I think that's what's so cool about talking to guys like you. And if there's any lesson for maybe some of the younger viewers, once you have kids and family and stuff, it is much more difficult to do things like this, right? And so if you're 25 right now listening and you don't have any kids yet, and there's something you want to go after, newsflash, now is the freaking time. Slide your chips in and freaking do it. Because Matt, imagine if you had your daughter at 24, right? Is Matt Fraser a 5-time champ if you have a daughter when you're 24? Do you think?
So I don't think it's guaranteed. No, but
it would have been different. It would have been harder.
Being a champ, I wouldn't be the father that I am right now. Not even fucking close. Not even fucking close. And that was another big thing that I knew. So like, once again, I had an example of my parents as athletes. My parents went to the 76 Olympics, then they won the senior world championships 4 times. They were pairs figure skating. And then, but I never saw them skate. Like, not once did I go to the rink with them at 4 a.m. or like watch them compete or anything like that. I knew my parents as my dad was dad. He was a stay-at-home father, and my mom was a family physician. That's what I knew. And so I always heard the stories of like them. It was my dad always telling the stories of, before my mom went into medical school or before they had kids, and the stories of them competing, traveling, training, all that stuff. And then the day that they decided, like, okay, it's time for mom to go to school, my dad got a job. My dad paid for my mom's school, pumping gas. And, but it was like, as soon as they were like, all right, we're done competing, now we want a family, it was like, boom. They weren't trying to do both at the same time. So that was my example growing up. But also, like, I know the schedule I kept when I was competing. And it's like, no, I couldn't imagine being away from my kid for that long. I'm sure just like you guys, like, we travel all the time for work. And I remember the first trip I took, it was planned for so long. It was with Black Rifle Coffee. We were going on an elk hunting trip, and it had been booked for so long. And it's like, Eddie's like a month old. And I was like, oh God, like, all right, I'm going on this trip. And I was supposed to be gone 8 days. And then I think I made it 4, because I was like, what am I doing? Like, I busted my ass and worked ridiculous hours. I had to do ridiculous things for years and years so that I didn't have to miss these moments. No, I don't have to go on these trips. I don't have to miss these moments. I don't, like, that was a big motivator when I was doing it. I was like, no, like, I never want to have to work on a weekend again. Like, no, if I have plans with the kids, I have plans with the family, I don't want a boss being able to dictate, hey, I need you to come in on Saturday. Not a fucking chance. It's like, that's my time with my kids. And that's always been the priority. And so yeah, I mean, I could not imagine trying to juggle both. I wouldn't want to. Yeah, no way. I don't want to spend that much time in the gym when I got a baby at home.
And even looking back, like, the fact that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, Sammy throughout the whole process seemed extreme. And this is just from listening to you on other podcasts. Like, the way she approached your discipline in that kind of time period of your life is unbelievable as well. And I think I always hear you give her a ton of credit. It's like a lot of relationships, like, if she, and I'm sure she's selfish, as we all are at times, but like, if she has any high level of selfishness throughout that process, like, you're not going to be able to approach training the way you did. Like, relationships are hard in and of themselves. And when you have somebody that's getting up at 6 a.m. and until 8 p.m., their whole day is scheduled out. Like I said, if you have any level of what's in this for me, or like, why is all the focus on him? Like, that's not going to work. So I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit too, because I'm always fascinated when you start to talk about it, like how she was able to transition to like, hey, this is our fit, or like this is our relationship now, and I'm going to support him. I think it's a really cool story.
Man, I just got goosebumps thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about like looking back, like in the moment I knew like how blessed I was, how lucky I was to have her, because I saw how much she did for me. Years later now, I'm in even more disbelief of just like, holy shit. Like I put my life on hold for a couple years, but like I was the one directly receiving the benefits or seeing the perks, or like kind of seeing what was going to get set up in the future. Getting the opportunities or whatever you want to call it. She was doing it like, what a thankless job. It's me telling her thank you, but that's it. And I remember when we lived in Tennessee, like she made some comments, early on, like during it, like, my days are lonely. Like I don't have many friends here. Like I have a couple people, but like even her friends, like they work full-time jobs. And then Sammy's at home and I'm at the gym. Like, so she's home alone a majority of the day, every day. And then when I come home, then it's like, all right, now she's cooking food for me. Now she's doing body work on me. Like, so and then even little things like every day she would go for like a walk around the neighborhood. And she'd be like, Matt, you want to go for a walk? I'm like, no, I'm not adding in extra steps. I'm laying on the couch. Like, that's it. Now it's like we go for a minimum 2-mile walk every single day, if not 4 miles. But it was just stuff like that, she just she was alone a lot. But also it, like, I think I don't know why she did it. If she believed in me, if I like gave her a good enough pitch on it. But I remember she worked for Reebok, and she had a very nice job at Reebok. And I just, when we were not even a year into dating, and I was like, hey, I want you to quit your job, move to Vermont, and help me train, and I'll try to set us up for life. And for whatever reason, she was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So she quit her job, moved to Vermont, moved into my parents' basement with me, and we just focused on training all day, every day. And she was support wherever she could be, whether it was body work or nutrition. I mean, fuck, she doubled as my counselor, like a therapist for, she's the one around me. So she's like her mind is just different. Like when she sees a situation, she just naturally sees the good in it. She's like very optimistic, very hopeful, and just a beautifully, beautifully kind person. Whereas for me, I'm not that way. It's I'm competing, and I'm a bit more aggressive, and probably a little bit more pessimistic. So she just helped me any avenue she could, and she crushed it. After retirement, there are some more adjustments there of I was just used to basically having a private chef. Like she would cook me 4 or 5 meals a day. She did everything. And then as soon as I retired, she was like, no, you make your own fucking sandwich. I'm like, oh, that was, and she was like, yeah, that was because you were competing and training. And I was like, got it. Okay. Yeah.
I love that.
That's awesome, man. Well, that's so inspiring to hear that. And, I can absolutely relate to that. When you have a spouse or a significant other that is fully supporting some wild, crazy dream that you have, I think it makes you on the back end, that much more motivated to, support them. And for you guys, obviously it was fortunate that it panned out to a good financial outcome, right? So it was like the effort paid out in a literal sense, but more so probably created a relationship that you guys have that, is just super tight bond, because you guys were in the trenches together before you were the Matt Fraser that we know, right? You could have went and got 15th place 5 years in a row. There was no guarantee on this effort when she moved in with you and you guys went all in on this. Now I know you had confidence, but it's no guarantee. You could get injured. You could be sick 2 days before the games and get 20th place, and you're like, well, shit, we just wasted a year. You know what I mean? So it's so cool that it panned out, but regardless, the fact that she was, willing to be by your side before you were the man, you know what I mean, it shows you that she's a keeper, man, and it's so awesome that you guys are now starting to, have a family, and man, just it came together so perfect, man. We're so happy for you.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah, looking back now, it's like it was all normal in the moment. And then it's like looking back now and it's like, holy shit, like you made those big life changes. You did that like on me just basically being like, hey, I believe in this, but if you're willing to help, like I think I can do it. And she did it. And yeah, forever grateful.
And I think the beautiful part of that is that it sounds like you guys both, first off, have the foresight and then the actual discipline that like that shared dream that you had was based in reality. Because I think you can get like if she would have done that and then like Bear said, you didn't perform or that you didn't provide financially for the family, then the resentment might be there 4 years later where it's like, man, I just sacrificed 5 years of my life and we're no better off than we were then. So I think it's a great, it's like almost like the ideal of what a relationship should be is like you two are pulling each other along. You have your roles, which of course there can be crossover at times there, but then it's based in reality in the sense of like, hey, we know the end state and we're getting little indicators as you started to win year after year, financials start to grow, like your opportunity starts to grow. It's like, then it's based in reality. It's not some delusional dream that you guys are convincing yourselves of. So yeah, I think it's an awesome just representation of what a really healthy relationship can look like, of like kind of pulling each other up out of the bullshit.
Well, yeah, and not to make this like personal, but I'm seeing a big parallel here with like the spouses in the SEAL teams. And I experienced that when Mal and I were married, but unfortunately in that world, it doesn't always turn out to this romantic ending, right? Because these ladies, God bless them, are running the house. Sometimes there's 2-3 kids running around. The dryer breaks. The lawn is a mile high, and it doesn't help that we're running around the country like jumping out of planes and like shooting machine guns and like cool shit that they think it's like this fun, easy job. Now, yes, it's fun, but
there's some parties.
It's super stressful, and you know what I mean. We're working our asses off. Like they don't see the grind part. They just see like, oh, you guys are jumping out of planes for 3 weeks. Like while I'm here with the managing the house.
Yeah, God forbid you call home and you're like, oh man, we had so much fun today.
Yeah,
and she's like, yeah, I had 3 fucking kids at home.
Exactly. But it's different when you're not a pro athlete, and it's much more of a kind of a harsh reality that a lot of these spouses experience, where they almost feel forgotten. And I don't blame them, right? And then a deployment hits, and that's 6 or 7 months. And unfortunately that leads to divorce a lot of the times. But then there's some badass spouses that are super independent that are like, no, this is my man. This is what he's doing. I'm going to support him. But sometimes that's 20 years, man. By then there's a bunch of teenagers running around, or some of them have gone off to college. So it's something that the community, we continue to kind of try to figure out, but the same parallel with that just unwavering loyalty. But unfortunately, just sometimes it doesn't end in that, just from the realities of life,
I think a huge, tick in my favor was, Sammy does CrossFit. She always says I fitness for fun. But she, like, the couple months leading into the games, I'm training 2-3 times a day. And she's like, no, I can't ask you to not train. That's your basically your life's purpose right now, is just that. So she was like, no, if I wanted to hang out with you, I would just go to the gym. And so she would be doing 2-a-days, 3-a-days with me, where it's like, if I'm going, I remember like one day I'm going to the track and I'm like, hey, I'm running a half marathon today. And she's like, okay, looks like I'm running the same, And so I forget how long it took, an hour and a bit or whatever. And she ran, I think it was about, for every 4 laps I did, she did 3. And so she ran, 9 miles or whatever that day. And, we'd be in the gym, 40-minute EMOMs. She would do a 40-minute EMOM with me. And so it's like, we still got to spend that time together. Obviously, she's scaling the workout back tremendously to, so it fits her. But it's like, no, like, she was able to come with me. But also she was okay with that. She was like, no, I'm not here to interrupt your goal. I don't want to pull you away from what you're working towards. But I just knew if I wanted to see you, and if I wanted to spend time around my person, I just had to do it at the gym for, these chunks of time in the year. So yeah, it worked out very well. I got to see, I had one close friend. I think you may have met him, Jack. But he would get deployed on, an hour's notice, and he had three young daughters and a wife at home. And I got to see tip of the iceberg of that, of just like what his life looked like. Most days, he goes to work in the morning, comes back in the evening. It's pretty normal. But then there's the times where he calls his wife and he's like, "Hey, I'm heading to base and I don't know when I'm going to be back. Like my pager went off and I'm leaving." And it's like they had fucking three daughters. Like right now, the daughters are 5, 3, and 1. It's like when you have a newborn and then like a year and a half, like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine. And then he's just gone, doesn't know how long he's going to be gone for. And she just has to deal with it. Like, it's like, holy shit, that is a whole nother level of a partner that's just there for the cause.
Yeah, these ladies are badasses, man. We got quite a few of them here at Born Primitive, and they downplay it, but we know what they're doing, and it's pretty inspiring. So any of the military spouses, or even the first responder spouses that are listening, we thank you guys for the sacrifice that you guys make. I want to shift gears a little bit before we close it out and just talk CrossFit, just the organization. What's your current?
About to get me in trouble.
Well, hey, I'm not trying to bait you or clickbait, but I'm genuine. So part of this is, and I had Don on, I had Dave on. We are a stakeholder in CrossFit success, right? Our brand was born in CrossFit. Born Primitive would not be what it is today if it wasn't for the meteoric rise of CrossFit. So I'm rooting CrossFit on as much as anyone. Being someone that's kind of not at the seat at the table, I definitely would make decisions differently if I was king for a day, but of course I'm not. But I absolutely am have skin in the game and the success of the organization. And we're not just a CrossFit brand. We've branched way out. We got tactical outdoor, these other things, but it's still kind of the roots of the brand. So I'm obviously always keeping an eye on it. I stay in the loop. Again, without tipping my hand, what's your take on what you're seeing right now? It's in CrossFit as an organization. Do you think it's being run correctly? Are they making mistakes? Are they doing better? I'm just curious your take, because you probably have different inroads than I do of kind of what you're seeing.
Honestly, like right now, I'm probably the wrong person to ask in terms of like what's happening internally at CrossFit. Just because like Eddie's 10 months old, and it's like that's just been my world for the last year, and with not competing, not being tied in quite as much with that side of stuff. When I was competing, I tried to always play both sides of the fence of, I'm not going to dismiss a bad decision of like a business decision that like, we see the end result of it and we're like, what the fuck? Like, it's not good for us. Like we don't like it. But then at the same time, I was always the first one to say like, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes. I wonder what else went into contributing to this decision, because I saw, I was by O'Keefe's side when he ran Wadapalooza, and I would see the stories that, I knew what was happening with O'Keefe. I knew what he was dealing with. And so I knew why the decision got sculpted the way it was. And then I saw, how people responded to it. And they're like, how could you think this is right? I'm like, well, you have 2% of the facts. Like, you don't know shit. And so I was always that guy. Like, don't get me wrong. That didn't mean I wasn't angry with CrossFit at times. It doesn't mean I didn't think that they made bad decisions at times. But like stuff at the CrossFit Games, I was like, look at how much you're trying to coordinate. You have how many competitors, how many spectators. It's like you have to mesh so many variables all at once. The fact that these competitions even happen when there's 2,500 competitors, there's 2,000 volunteers, there's 40,000 spectators. It's like, that's a fucking lot. Most people have trouble coordinating 6 people together for brunch. Never mind thousands of people for an entire week, It's like, that's all. Think about this realistically. No, I mean, the little bit that I have talked to, I've spent a little bit of time with Don. I think I think he's a great guy. He seems like he has a great head on his shoulders, but like I haven't sat in on any boardroom meetings. I'm so focused on, HWPO and my family that O'Keefe is a lot more tied in. He a lot more of the big picture stuff. But it's like I just hope it just it just seems tiring after a lot of years of it. Just like seems like so many people are upset and angry, and it's like no decision is correct. There's a problem with every solution, and it's like, guys, let's just work out. Like, let's focus on health and fitness. Let's try to spread the good message. Let's try to, put good things into our bodies. And it's like, let's just get back to the community side. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying that the community side's gone. It's just like from a competitor standpoint for years and years, it's like you get wrapped up and it's like the stakes are high. It's like for me, the stakes of the games were incredibly high because the way I was set up was no, that was my annual income was the games. Like the way my contracts were set up was I didn't have much of an annual salary. I put all my eggs into one basket of me fucking winning. That was it. So when my responses to a lot of situations were way bigger than I think seemed justified because nobody else knew what I had on the line. Nobody understood there was only Sammy and O'Keefe that knew the details. So when stuff came up of, people talking about me at the games or like, oh, he's not going to do well or like whatever it was, it's like, no, that shit those were fighting words to me because I was like, no, that's my livelihood. That's my everything. That's how I'm going to provide for my family. But then as soon as I'm out of that, like I don't make my money from competing anymore. My livelihood doesn't depend on it, nothing. So it's just like, okay, I just hope that they can run clean, a clean, well-rounded competition. Getting involved more on the community side, it's been a lot of fun. But it's like for us, like we've had the affiliates around us that we drop into. That's never changed. They've always been the same community. They've always been the same friends. So I mean, in terms of like the big picture of CrossFit, nah, I don't know. I hope they can just make the right decisions, do well for themselves, do well for their community, and keep it going.
Yeah, we do too, and I think it all comes down to community. I mean, you nailed it. There's something special about going into a CrossFit gym and struggling together and becoming friends with those people, and that's where the magic was right in the beginning, and that's why it became into this global phenomenon. And I think we'll see how things go. I think my optic is there's one area that they could really improve on is just storytelling. Like I don't know if you followed the UFC much. But I think what's brilliant with the UFC, and I'm a casual fight. I'm not some diehard MMA guy, but I tune in enough. I'll probably get 3 or 4 fights in a year that I'll order. But sometimes you watch the pre, I don't even know what the program's called, but it gives you the behind the scenes with the fighters, and you start learning their backstories.
And you get a glimpse into their camp.
Yeah, and before you know it, I'm like, an hour ago I didn't know who this guy was, and now I'm like at the edge of my seat, rooting this guy on because you know what I mean. And I feel like that creates such a personal element, and I feel like they can do that with CrossFit because I hate to say it, I'm pretty involved in CrossFit. I don't know who half the people are anymore, right? And so when someone gets 6th place, I'm like, I don't know who the fuck that is. But if they told me the story of that girl and that she used to be this and now then I'd be like, oh, hell yeah. You know what I mean? So I feel that there's a lot of opportunity there because it'll get some Joe Schmo like me that really doesn't give a shit to then be way more invested because I know the storylines of the athletes. So that's my one thing I think, the top dogs, you guys, we know.
Yeah, now that you mention it, totally. When I remember when I first got in the space, it's like I think, that 2012 2012, 2014, it's like CrossFit media was firing on all cylinders. Like they were storytelling and it was fucking cool. Like all the Road to the Games videos.
Yeah.
Like I remember even when they had the update show and it was like, I remember Pat Sherwood used to call every athlete every athlete that qualified for the games, or every athlete that was going into regionals looking good, he was calling. He was getting the backstories. He was getting that information. And then like they had a whole show dedicated to just talking about that. And then the Road to the Games videos, like you want to talk about just the fucking coolest. Like you're getting a glimpse into these athletes' like personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it was really funny, like watching those videos in the moment. Like, you know, they would come record, and then the video is getting released like a week later. And so, you know, you're looking at it through the lenses of that's just my current life. But looking back at it now, it's like those are some of my favorite videos because like it documented everything. It showed, like I get to show those videos to my kids, and like I don't have to really try to you know, I don't have to waste time trying to describe what the gym looked like or who these people were or anything. It's like, no, you get to watch my home video. You get to see where I trained. You get to see, you know, me getting grilled, getting asked these questions. You got to see like my apartment, my home life, my all that shit. I think it was so cool, and it was such a bummer when it all went away. Um, yeah, that was tough, and I don't think the impact was immediate, but I think we are seeing the impact now because we're not as familiar with as many athletes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one because I know it's expensive, and I know like they're trying to fix profitability. So it's like one of those things like, oh, you can hire a media team, but then you're going to be less profitable in the near term. But long term, it might make you more profitable because it gets – so, you know, and it's always operationally it's different when you're the one actually running the show. And someone who owns a company, I totally acknowledge that. And I'm not trying to, you know, Monday morning quarterback it. But I just think from a consumer standpoint, that would be one area because there are so many badass stories that could be told. And that helps the athletes too, right? Because then their stock rises, you know, rising tide raises all ships sort of thing. But we'll see how it goes. You know, I think by the time this airs, it might be right before the game. So hopefully, you know, big turnout in Texas. And you got any predictions for if men and women? You willing to?
No, I don't do that. I don't do that because I fucking hated it when people did it to me.
Hell yeah, Tony, you got anything else, man?
No, not without going down any further offshoots. So
okay, well, I got one more question. This is a random one. It just popped in my head. But looking back at your career, what would be one thing if you could run the tape back you would do differently?
I think like the easiest answer is I would have had more fun. I would have not taken it so heavy. You know, for me, it was every ounce, every second, every decision, like it consumed me. And, you know, I wish on those rest days, I wish I went and did a trip with Sammy. I wish I, you know, went for that hike or, you know, if it was something that she was looking at doing or, you know, a trip that was, I'm like, you know, that's 2 months before regionals. I can't do it, you know? You know, I wish I put a little bit more emphasis on the friends, family, and experiences. You know, obviously I'm not upset that I didn't. It's like I'm trying to, you know, not make up for lost time, but not repeat those mistakes now. You know, I'm trying to work day is done at this time, and then it's like, nope, that now it's family time, now it's friends, and investing into quality of life and not just the end result. I would say that would probably be the number one thing, but also that's just because I took it to such an extreme. You know, it was like, yeah, there were 0 days of chilling.
I mean, that's what made you great, though, man. And I love the humility in that answer. And I think you probably now have incredible perspective on that, so you're even better at balancing because you were so out of balance before. But that is the common thread with all these super elite athletes. I love the story of Kobe Bryant when he was on Team USA with like LeBron and all these guys. I think they were in Vegas training. You know, they just do a few weeks of practice, I think, before the Olympics because they're all NBA guys and they know they're going to win. But so those guys were all going out and partying. They're going to the clubs and stuff. You know, the NBA players, they got probably entourages. All the ladies want to, you know, meet them. And they came back to limped back to the hotel. It was like 4:30 in the morning or something, right? And they're going to go to bed. And Kobe was he was like he was down in the lobby like with his workout stuff on, and he was waking up to go hit his morning workout, and they had like 2 practices that day, right? He's getting a workout in before the 2 workouts, right? And he's not partying. He's hey, I'm playing for Team USA. We're gonna fucking win this thing. And all the young bucks, you know, because Kobe was a little bit older than these guys, you know, the LeBrons and stuff, were like, well, shit, is that the standard? So then the next morning, you know, there was a couple guys that joined him for his morning workout, right? And then by the end of like their little mini camp, all these guys realized, okay, this is the standard, and he set the tone for the team. But it's so cool. I mean, it's the same types of stories. It's someone with an exceptional work ethic and dedication, and that is what leads to the, you know, kind of this outlier success that very few see. So just awesome to hear it, man. I know there's way more details on the dedication and the day-to-day and all the shit that you did, but I think you laid it out pretty well, even with your rest day. I mean, shit, rolling out on a foam roller for fucking 9 hours. That shit sucks, man. It's not like it's hard, but it sucks. And, you know, you'd rather just be laid up on the couch, you know, chilling, but you got to work deep tissue and all that shit, you know what I mean, to get ready for the next day. So super cool just to get a glimpse of what that looked like, man. And I appreciate you sharing, you know, some time with us, and I'll, you know, continue to watch, you know, your continued success. It's so cool to see that, you know, one chapter ended and hey, that was a great gig, but on to the next thing, and double down on the same approach that made you successful in as a CrossFit Games athlete. And I absolutely love to see that. So good luck, man. You got an ally here with us, and let us know if we can ever do anything for you.
Hell yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, all right, Matt. Buddy. Good luck with everything.